With Season 21 comes a new seasonal artifact, one of the things that I get the most excited about in each season. New builds. What's going to be good? What's the new hotness? What's the unique thing going on? Well, those of you who played in Season 18 are probably very familiar with Arc builds. It's when we got Arc 3.0. And during that season, I covered Heart of Inmost Light Titan, Liar's Handshake Hunter, and Fallen Sunstar Warlock, although in Season 19 is when I posted the Cold Heart Warlock build I'll be discussing today. And I was hoping that the seasonal artifact perks that we got for this season would inspire some kind of a spin on these builds, sort of like how maybe we got the Firebolt perks for Season 20 or the Tangled perks. After doing research, I came to the conclusion that these perks are not exactly what I was hoping for after the perks that we got in Season 20, save for maybe one of them. Why is that? We have, count them, 5 perks dedicated to arc effects in Season 21. Amplify lasts longer, you gain damage resistance while amplified, your arc super does more damage while amplified or when you're hurt, Arc Final Blows while amplified provide a lightning strike which jolts targets, and throwing an arc grenade gives you more grenade recharge rate, with this effect being extended by arc kills. Now, in a vacuum, all of these effects are pretty good. Thunderous Retort, where you do more super damage, use that with like Thunder Crash and Curus, and you're doing a bajillion damage with a Thunder Crash. Shock and Awe, the lightning strike stuff, that perk is pretty good too. The lightning strike itself doesn't really do a lot of damage, but it jolts every target that was hit, meaning you can just AoE groups of enemies down. The lightning strike does have a brief cooldown though of about 4 to 5 seconds, so you can't spam it, but I think that's okay. One thing that was kind of a big letdown was lightning strikes twice. When this was available in Season 18, half the time it didn't even feel like it was doing anything, but it was just an incredibly weak perk when it was supposed to be the premier perk of Season 18. Like, that's what we got. So this time around, seeing it again, I figured that Bungie would give this thing a little bit of love. Unfortunately, it did not really feel like it was given much love, and the effect is still just not that strong. Not strong enough to really build around. I realize that you are getting this effect literally for free, though, and that something is better than nothing. So what's the issue then? One mod is sort of not that great. Like, what's the big deal? The issue, for me anyway, is that while these mods are good, they do little to nothing to change how we played these builds back in Season 18. In fact, I would say the global changes to the game back in Lightfall do more for these builds than these perks do. If you didn't play in Season 18, then, you know, this is all new, fine. But I was hoping for something in the way of Season 20, where we had the Firebolt build, the Tangle setup, something that felt unique to that season specifically to enjoy. All of the perks from the artifact this time are just nice to have. They aren't build defining, they aren't the cornerstone of any kind of a build, they don't provide a spin on a currently existing thing, and after Season 20, I was kind of hoping for more of that. The upside is that these builds will work at any point during the game's life. They don't rely on the artifact perks to function. I'm ripping the Season 18 builds that I posted for this video almost unchanged. And the downside of what I'm looking for is that those builds only work within a given season. So there's benefits to both. But this season, the arc perks, honestly most of the perks, are simply nice to have perks that just add on bonuses to builds that already exist. As a result, instead of making multiple arc build videos for builds that I have already made and discussed at length on the channel, I am just going to give one build for each class in this video, recapping the builds that I made in Season 18. Would it probably be a better idea to remake all of the videos over again? Yes. Do I personally really want to do that? No. I would rather move on and test out some of the new exotics or the buffed exotics and stuff like that. I do not want to make the individual videos for the arc builds again. I already did them. I don't want to copy paste them into 3 full new videos. Also, Just to put this up front, right before we get into the build crafting, pretty much all of the footage you are going to see is with the Arc Surge modifier active. I have no way of controlling this, but I figure if you're going to play with these builds this season, it's probably going to be when Arc Surge is active. So this is a realistic view of what you will be experiencing with Arc Surge active. To make things a bit easier, I have again partnered up with Mobalytics in Season 21. They are sponsoring the video. They are going to have full builds that I discuss here on their website, so you can follow along with all the recommendations that I'll be making here in one place. Aspects, fragments, gameplay for all the classes, you name it. The link is in the description for those looking for the build and other builds that I will be discussing today and in the future. Because I'm trying to do 3 builds in one video, I am going to be speeding things up and not doing full breakdowns of these builds in terms of their setup, but rather what I use and if anything has dramatically changed since Season 18 and 19 when it comes to gameplay. So let's start with Warlocks. In Season 19, I posted a video about Coldheart and how Warlocks should try it out considering the buff that it got, combined with also buffed Arc Souls. I am happy to report that this build is still very strong and very fun. Back then, I suggested the following: Electrostatic Mind and Arc Soul for aspects, and Shock, Beacons, Brilliance, and Ions for fragments. Is anything changing here? Nope. All of these remain the same. You can make some swaps if you would like to fit your playstyle, but otherwise, this is a pretty good setup. Beacons and Brilliance are the 2 main fragments so that you can blind everything, while Shock and Ions add some extra utility and ability energy. Exotic? Last time, I said it almost doesn't matter what you use, as there are so many options to play with. Sunstar for more ionic traces and ability spam, Crown of Tempest because it works with jolted targets, that's going to pair really nicely with Shock and Awe this season, Getaway Artist for more Arc Souls and amplification, Mantle of Battle Harmony, the list goes on. The build is in Coldheart, it's in the aspects and the fragments, and your exotic just enhances things. I still like using Fallen Sunstar though, as it feels very consistent, but I've seen a good amount of hype for Getaway Artist this season. Stats-wise, nothing is changing here. You want high resilience, high recovery, high discipline, pretty typical Warlock setup. And mod-wise, I guess we can do a re-review since the mod system is different, but if you've been engaged with build crafting for the past 3 months, none of this should really come as a surprise. In the Helm slot, Arc Siphon, Heavy Ammo Finder, and the final option is yours really. You could go Heavy Ammo Scout, you could go Ashes to Assets, you could go another Siphon mod, really up to you. Arms. I don't think we need more energy, but I'm not going to stop you if you want more. It's your build. This is a weapon-focused build. I personally want some reload speed, and then maybe some sort of orb-generating mod, heavy-handed firepower, probably firepower, and then top it off with like impact induction or something like that. Chest, resistances, you kind of know the drill there. Legs, we can go full throttle into Arc Surge mods. We're going to have a ton of healing from our rifts already. I'm going all in on surges. And your class item, I know Powerful Attraction. It's pretty new. I've heard good things, and we are going to be using our class ability quite a lot, basically on cooldown. Orbs are going to power our surge mods. I think there's very little reason to not use it, or at least try it out. Throw on Time Dilation and Outreach or Bomber to cap things off. How does this build play? You drop your Rift, and you laser things in the face. It is as simple as that. Arc Souls do very strong damage now, definitely worthy of your time, even in Legend or potentially higher content. Dude, these things were crushing Legend Nightfall enemies like they were nothing, although the Arc Surge modifier definitely helped. You're going to be crowd controlling enemies with blind through Spark of Beacons and Brilliance, making sure you're getting headshots. You're going to be lightning storming them with Shock and Awe, and you're going to jolt all of them. You're going to have increased defense with electric armor while constantly healing in your rifts, more super damage with Thunderous Retort. It is one of the best pub stomper builds for PvE that I've ever played with. And again, it's so simple to use with an exotic that most people should definitely have already. This thing has been around since 2017. Spam your abilities on cooldown, make sure you're dropping rifts, and just laser things. A problem that I had with the build back then was that your anti-champion capabilities were very, very weak. Nowadays, things are a bit different. I will say that you are going to crush overloads, specifically in Season 21, because you're going to have Overload Trace Rifle, and Jolt also stuns overloads. And Jolt is really good at keeping overloads stunned, which means you're not going to need to swap weapons while Jolt is on the target, which is awesome. The other champions do leave you in a bit of a bind, though. You're going to have a ton of blinding potential for unstoppables, but things need to line up for you a bit. It's not like you can just directly stun them, so you might need to rely on teammates a bit more for that. And barrier, you're just kind of out of luck there. But hey, progress, overloads, I take it. This build was crushing Legend Nightfall. Master Nightfall going to be a little bit tougher, but I think it'll still work out in there. GMs, I'm a little hesitant. We'll see how it goes once those unlock. But anything Legend and under, this build just wrecks face. It's so strong. The only issue you're going to run into is running out of special ammo, but running double special can potentially help with that. When it comes to the solo game, Lost Sectors, it's not too shabby, but I'd be trying to stay as high level as possible here. You can really start to feel the effects of the level deficit when it comes to your trace rifle damage if you start to become too low level. This build is definitely a bit more suited towards the casual end of the game versus the absolute highest tier master, grandmaster. That doesn't mean it's not fun though, because it very much is, and for a very large chunk of the game, it is very, very usable. I will say that while Warlocks benefit the most from this build, Titans and Hunters can absolutely use these fragments and see a good amount of success as well, especially thanks to Shock and Awe from Season 21. It's just that Warlocks take it to the next level. Hunters, you're up next. I'd like to recap Liar's Handshake, or Assassin's Cowl if you're scared, as this build is very powerful at the highest levels of the game. Has anything changed from Season 18 when it comes to the Liar's Handshake setup? Also, no. Flow State and Lethal Current for your aspects, Spark of Resistance and Feedback for the main two fragments, with the final two being more open to your playstyle. I think I again did Shock and Ions as fragments, as they're just going to work pretty much anywhere. Combination Blows are going to be your melee of choice, and if you want to mess with fragments involving blinding effects, feel free as well, as blind is a part of the build. The debate between Liar's Handshake and Assassin's Cowl, I think, comes down to preference and activity. Assassin's Cowl is likely to be more popular in endgame, whereas Liar's Handshake is safer in low and mid-tier content, although both can be used in either one. I have gameplay of me in a Master Lost Sector this season using Liar's Handshake. Assassin's Cowl makes you invisible after powered melee final blows, hence the safety. Stats-wise, you're going to want to go for high resilience and discipline and medium mobility and strength. This is because your Gambler's Dodge will be refreshing your melee ability, and when you kill with the melee ability, it's going to refresh your Gambler's Dodge. If you play the build right, which is mainly just punching and dodging, you'll probably never need to worry about these cooldowns in a significant way, leaving room for resilience and discipline to shine. Mod-wise, this build is all about melee kills, so in the Helm, we're going 2 hands-on mods and a Siphon. That works for me, although the Siphon might not even be necessary. In the arm slot, heavy-handed is a given, impact induction is a smart choice, and if you want to cram a reload speed mod in there too for the shotgun you may or may not be using, feel free. Any sort of use my class ability or melee to get other energy mod is going to be good here. Chest, resistances. Legs, I hesitate to say surge mods because you're mainly going to be killing enemies through melee attacks. That's where the bulk of your damage will be. Recuperation is a very smart play. As always, I would grab one of those at least. But the other orb mods I'm not the most keen about because we'll be refreshing those cooldowns through our subclass options. You could also go Scavenger to make sure your power ammo is topped up. I feel like that's the first time I've actually recommended Scavenger in 3 months. Class item, I'm feeling Powerful Attraction and Double Bomber. You're going to be spamming your class ability this whole time, and it beats having to chase down orbs if you do run with a mod that needs orbs. So how do you play this build? You kill something with your melee attack, you dodge near enemies to get it back, which will then make it so your next melee jolts the target, and if you punch a jolted target, you will blind them as well. Combine with a shotgun with 1-2 punch or even Legend of Acreus for more fun. In anything that is not legend content, seasonal activity, strike playlist, anything like that, this build is crazy overkill. I don't know how to tell you guys this, but you do not need to deal 45,000 damage to a red bar dreg. You just don't. It's fun though, but you don't. You don't. You're gonna be wiping the floor with everything that spawns, and all you gotta do is punch, dodge, punch, dodge. That's it. Jolt is gonna be chaining everywhere. You're gonna one-shot most things at combination blow ×3 besides bosses. This just dominates this kind of stuff. In higher end content is where the real power of this build gets to show itself, because you're not dealing overkill damage, but rather really, really, really high damage to champions. I mean, just look at what I'm doing to this Legend Lost Sector. Look. And in Season 21, you're gaining damage reduction while amplified, which you will be all of the time. On Master, though, you do need to play a little bit smarter. I would not be challenging champions without a stack or two, probably 3 stacks of combination blow ready, because your base melee really does not deal that much damage, and that will get you in trouble. This footage is with me using Liar's Handshake. Assassin's Cowl is not as high-powered, but a lot of the strength of the melee attack comes from combination blow ×3, not Liar's Handshake. Again, Jolt works wonders on Overload champions, which was definitely one of the weaknesses compared to the Season 18 version of this build. You had to do some pretty big combo damage to deal with champs in one go. Now it's a lot smoother, at least on Overload champions. One big weakness, though, is that if you have to let off the gas for whatever reason, it can be a little tough to start the engine back up, so to speak. There's going to be a lot of damage flying at you, and if you're not able to heal yourself from melee kills, remember your melee at base does not do that much damage. If you take a little too long punching something down, it's going to get a little dicey. Also important to know is that to stack combination blow, you must get a melee kill. Chaining Jolt or the Chain Lightning or whatever else is flying out of your fist, that doesn't count. Make sure you are getting melee kills. Make sure you are stacking combination blow. If you're using a 1-2 punch shotgun, be sure to melee first, then quickly shotgun and melee after to get the 1-2 punch bonus melee damage on the second hit of Liar's Handshake, which deals more damage. If you're on Assassin's Cowl, then ignore what I just said. This build holds up incredibly well. It's better than it was in Season 18. And even on Master difficulty, I was flying through this Master Lost Sector at 1818. That's 22 levels below. Arc Surge is definitely what's giving this build that last little boost that it needed to be really consistent at the highest difficulties. And I cannot recommend this build enough. It should be in every single Hunter's PvE kit. Titans. Titans. You have so many good exotic options for Arc now. Point Contact Cannon Brace. It got buffed. It's pretty good now. I wanted to try it. But if the Cold Heart build felt like a Pub Stomper build, this one is probably going to feel even more so like a Pub Stomper build. We'll talk about Heart of Inmost Light a little bit later. Aspects. We have Touch of Thunder and Knockout. Juggernaut, not really the greatest PvE aspect. Fragments, I went with Spark of Ions because you're going to be jolting a lot of stuff with Point Contact's melee, and if you use Pulse Grenade, you're going to get more Ionic traces there too. Feedback and Resistance are good for middle game stuff, legend level content. You got bonus damage resistance, bonus melee damage. The last slot is a flex. You could do Beacons if you're rocking Cold Heart, or maybe Delicate Tomb if you want to break that back out. You can do Shock for a guaranteed overload stunning grenade. If I want Shock and Beacons, I take out Feedback. Stats-wise, high resilience, high recovery, and then I think a mix of discipline and strength is good. I initially went full strength. I think I might want to try a more 50-50 split, but either one is going to be fine. Mods depend on if you want Surge mods or Kickstart mods. I like Kickstarts a bit more because I was really trying to get a lot of use out of the melee. So instead of Surge mods, I did orb-related mods, specifically Recuperation, because we are going to want instant heals. If you think you're going to want Surge mods more, I feel like you may enjoy Eternal Warrior instead, and then focus more on a weapon-based setup. I can do 45 minutes talking about all the Arc Titan exotics, but I'm just going to keep it moving here. So how does this build work? You find a group of enemies. You thunderclap in the direction of the most amount of them, or the biggest target, and you clap them. Anything that is not hit by the direct melee itself is going to take big damage anyway from the AoE effect of point contact, and if they still don't die, they're going to be jolted for easy cleanup. You aren't really going to need to wind up the attack very much. An instant punch will do on most enemies in casual content. Only on targets that you think will survive should you charge the punch more. Now, once you start pushing towards legend difficulty is where I say this build starts to lose some of that shine. Can you run a legend lost sector with this build? Absolutely. Was I able to run a strand setup with perks from this season's artifact and not only do it safer and easier, but also faster? Yeah, I was. This build is pretty risky to use if you're not used to an aggressive playstyle. I am not used to a very aggressive playstyle, and it took me a while to realize that I need to be amplified pretty much all the time using this setup, and be aggressive all the time using this setup. Electric armor is good, it's not woven mail good. Health regeneration on melee kill is not as good as you may think, because if anything hits you while that regen is going, it will stop the regeneration. And let me tell you that if you're doing solo lost sectors, things are going to be hitting you. This build's weakness, ironically enough, is lack of healing. And if you get caught, which is going to happen, you're going down. Getting those monster punches off is incredibly satisfying when you can make it work though, and just chaining from one pack of enemies to another. I ran a couple of Legend Nightfalls with some friends, and you know, this build's a little tough. It's a little tough to use. Devil's Lair, it's got a bajillion enemies, but because my teammates were absolutely gaming out of their minds and my build requires a lot of running around and charging of attacks, it was tough to get those very satisfying big kill moments. And a lot of the time, I would have to play very recklessly to even have a chance at getting some of those cool moments to happen. Maybe with a bit more practice, I will get this to work a bit better, but right now, I'm hesitant to use it above legend difficulty. This is not something I plan on busting out in the GM world. It is a pub stomper build, and it's fun within its target range, but breaking out of that range is kind of hard. Not only that, but I've heard from peers that Heart of Inmost Light is maybe still better than point contact, and that would not surprise me at all, because Heart is still good. It's just not the ridiculous thing that it was in Season 18. Now, if we want to compare to Skullfort, I would say Skullfort is for people who want to punch a lot, and point contact is for people who want to punch hard. I tested them both out, Legend Lost Sector, they both work. It just depends on how much you like to punch. Me, I don't need to punch every 2 seconds. I like the big punch. I like the big AoE. But other people, you may like to punch every 2 seconds. I am not going to stop you. But I will stop me from talking any further, because this is getting really long. There is a chance that I visit some alternate arc builds in the near future, but I think these are the big three that I really wanted to discuss and re-review from Season 18 and Season 19. And Titans, I wanted to talk about point contact can embrace. I know this is a much different format than usual, although it wasn't really my intent to do it like this. I'm still just a little bit mad about a lot of my prep kind of going to waste. Please let me know what you guys prefer with the build videos, if you like the longer ones with more detail into why I pick certain things, or if you'd rather me keep things brief. For what it's worth, I do like the format that I have been using. This video is just kind of a special exception. Feel free to load up the comments with how you're feeling about ARC stuff, your own ARC builds, your own suggestions, what you guys have found at the start of the new season. Thank you again to Mobalytics for sponsoring the video. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time.